Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode. I was about to say edition, either one works, of Creatives Ignite. And I'm really excited to have my friend Pippa Tanko. She is from South Africa, but she lives in the UK. She's south of London, and she is a brand photographer, but she's done other kinds of photography as well. And if you're new to Creatives Ignite, we're just coming back. I'm super excited that Pippa gets to be my first interview back. Pippa and I have gotten to know each other probably over the last year and a half. We're in a group together and we still meet every Monday morning. Super early for me. It's not Monday morning for her. But we meet at 6 a.m. my time and I'm dressed, ready to go. Of course, I don't wear makeup, so it doesn't really matter. But I have seen Pippa grow a ton, and I have really loved seeing that weekly kind of interaction. And she's probably seen me struggle and grow as well. And things, I think when you can struggle and grow with other people, it's really important. So if somebody's new here today, the thing with Creatives Ignite is that it is for people who are doing their business alone. We're usually solopreneurs and we own a creative business and we are trying to do lots of things. We're trying to do our marketing, do better in our creative industry. For me, it's design. For Pippa, it's photography, but there's so many things that are shared. And the more people that you talk to, like the more people that are like Pippa that I talk to, or just more designers that I talk to, I see the things where I can improve. And then I can also, they can help iron sharpens iron, right? So anyway, I'm really excited. So Pippa, thank you for doing this with me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm super pumped to be here tonight.
All right. Well, see, it's tonight for her and it's today for us still, right? And even better, you guys get to wish her a happy birthday because her birthday is tomorrow. So happy birthday to Pippa. And so anyway, and Hannah Wilson's here too. She's here in Mobile as well. Okay. So Pippa, I want you to give people a little bit about your background and where your love for photography came, and then when did you start it as a business?
Okay, sure. So as you said, I'm a brand photographer and I capture creative agency owners or creative solopreneurs in their best kind of being their best selves. And I do this by creating images that really empower them to show up for their business and become the face of their brand. And that really, I suppose, the reason why is to really help them attract their dream clients so that they can charge higher rates, which we all want to do, right? And so that we can do more of the projects we love to do and work more with the clients we love working with, and so that we can build that kind of life of freedom, that business and life of freedom. And I guess photography has been a big part of my kind of journey from really early on. So my father was killed in a car accident when I was 8 months, and that left my mum a widow with two small children. And which meant that we didn't grow up with an awful lot of money. But one of the things that was hugely important to her was to send us to private schools. And so God only knows how, but she found a way. And she managed to send us to private schools. But for me, it was really quite difficult because I always felt like the poor kid on the block. I was embarrassed. My family didn't have big, nice, fancy cars and huge houses, and didn't go on great holidays and things. And so I grew up feeling quite insecure. And it wasn't until my teens when I discovered photography through a cousin of mine, and he used to capture these incredible portraits. And I think that through those portraits, I started to see that everybody is unique, because the people that he was photographing weren't big, fancy, people with loads of money. They were just your average Joes on the street, and I think it made me understand that it doesn't matter who you are, you are unique and you are special. And so that started to kind of resonate with me, I suppose. And I started to connect with those faces and those people, and I started to kind of understand that I was also special through that process, and that was incredibly powerful in my journey. So photography has been with me for a long time. A lot of my family members are photographers, and yeah, I just feel like it's kind of running through my veins a little bit, if that
Yeah.
makes.
So how much older was your cousin than you?
He was about 20 years older than me. I think he got married when I was about 3, if I remember. So my mum
Wow.
was the youngest of her family by quite a long by quite a long shot. So he was a lot older. So he being a being in a single parent family, my mum spent a lot of time thinking I could just do with a break and the holidays. So she'd ship us off to my cousin's farm to go and work and hang out and be looked after and for her to have a bit of a break. But he was a photographer, and I think the first time he took me into the darkroom was when I was about 10 years old, and I've never forgotten that experience of watching an image come to life on a piece of paper as it rocked through some liquid,
Yeah.
which was really incredible. And I think that I have that vision in my head still to this day.
That's cool. So then did you study photography in school, or did you know you wanted to be a professional photographer like your cousin, or how did you get to that stage of that being your business?
Sure. No, to be honest, they did do photography at school, but we didn't have enough money for a camera, and you had to have an SLR, so I couldn't do it as part of the school curriculum. And so I actually went into graphic design initially, funnily enough. And that's what I studied after school. I think I was still just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and it wasn't until I came to the UK, and my cousin and his wife actually moved to the UK around the same time as me, just by coincidence. But I went to work for them, and he kind of encouraged me to take up photography. I think one day I was having a play with one of his cameras, and when he looked at the image, he just said, "You've got such a natural gift. You should think about pursuing it." And he really helped me buy my first camera, and he was like, "Read this book, go and read this, go and look at this." And so I'm actually pretty much self-taught, obviously with a lot of guidance from him. And
That's
did a few small courses, but nothing major.
well, and so much of what we do is we're refining what we like and what other people are responding to, and how you're able to see what's working. And you're like, can I capture that? So it's a lot of just exploration and in what you're capturing, but so much of photography, oh my goodness, is your connection to who's behind that camera. So if you're taking my photo, you have to have a rapport with me to get
And
me to loosen up. And I've seen lots of photographers who just don't have that. And you are just a natural at that. So
thank
one of
you.
your
I think,
superpowers.
it's one of the things I always say is, even as photographers, that we can't take photos of ourselves. And the reason why we can't, I mean, I could put a camera up on a tripod and I could hold a trigger in my hand and I could remotely take a photo, but I'm not going to have that light in my eyes. I'm not going to have that like sparkle and that interaction that you get from being opposite somebody else who you're kind of feeding off.
Yeah. And there's so much to that. So how long ago did you start your business as doing photography?
So I started going, started probably about 18 years ago, and 18, 19 years ago, 2004, whatever
Mm-hmm.
that is, but
Mm-hmm.
18 years ago. But I actually started in family and baby photography. I guess because it was where I felt comfortable. I worked with families and babies, so it just felt quite natural to go into that. I liked children. They say never work with children or animals, but for some reason I thought it was a good idea. And I love children, and so it was a great start. And I think my passion actually started just running around taking photos of landscapes and learning about light and painting with light. But when I started my business, I knew I wanted to photograph people, and so that started with children because it's really easy to make kids laugh. You just make a bunch of farting noises and you're sorted.
That's right. That's right. So then, okay, so then how far into babies and children and families, because you were doing that, when
Hmm.
did you start doing, because I know you did some architecture, you worked for, I mean, and talk about beautiful Oh, Hannah Wilson says if you make farting noises with adults, it makes them laugh too. So just keep doing that sound with your underarm, I guess. Don't do it for real. It's not funny anymore. But the how far into that, like how many years or decades were you in that you were like, I need something, or was it just a challenge to take the architecture photos? And then how long after that did you decide to start doing what you're doing now?
So I guess I started maybe 4 or 5 years in. People started through word of mouth, kind of saying, "Hey, would you take some photos of this project?" Or, and I think as creatives, we're always looking for ways to push ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I started just saying, "Yeah, why not?" And going and giving it a shot, and you know, as time grew on and I started to learn more about it, I started to deliver better results for clients. But I never really marketed myself as a commercial photographer or a branding photographer, but I still did win projects where I was working in those industries, although my marketing and all my focus really was on families and babies. Then, yeah, probably, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I decided that I kind of started to feel like there was a connection to helping business owners. And I've started thinking about how I could use the skills that I had to help other business owners. And so branding photography wasn't really a thing yet. I mean, it's been around for ages, right? But it wasn't called branding photography. But it was starting. It was starting to get a little bit of traction. It's something I'd heard about. I think most of the things that we get over in the UK start in the States, so maybe that's something that I'd heard there. And I started thinking about how I could do it and what I should do. But I think sometimes the problem is when you're in it, you so easily drawn back to what you know. So I would think, right, I'm going to start pushing and figuring out how I'm going to do the brand photography and how I can help business owners. But I kept just getting stuck back into, well, I know how to do babies and I know how to do families and I know how to market for it. So I just kept getting stuck back in and marketing for that.
Was there a trigger or something? So if you're getting pulled back, I know we were both in Matt Essam's group with Faye. And so what was it something in before when you decided to join a group, right? What was that trigger that made you were like, I got to do something? This, like you could have just, you know, run that fence line all the time. I do some babies, I do some, but what was it that made you say, you know what, I want to do my business more seriously and or that was it and then you just decided to pivot after more learning you were doing? What was it?
I guess, well, first of all, I decided I needed to put my money where my mouth is and have my own personal brand photo shoot. And I think
Oh,
that was quite pivotal in my journey because I got to see it, how powerful it was in my own journey.
yeah.
Um, so I think I'm not used to being on the other side of the camera. I'm used to being on this side of the camera. So for me, it was pushing myself outside my comfort zone. And I did that probably maybe a year or so before COVID hit and we went into lockdown. And that kind of planted a seed, I guess, because I felt, I don't know, when I saw the images and I saw myself as the business owner I was striving to become, that was incredibly powerful in like how I started showing up for my business,
Mm,
right? And so, and I guess I'd had these ideas of maybe changing into this genre, but I think that kind of cemented it for me, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Then then lockdown happened and it just gave me the time and the headspace that I needed. All of a sudden I was thrown into you can't be near babies, you can't, even when things started to lighten up again and open up again, like I wasn't going to put a mum who'd just gone through labor at risk by being around them, or a newborn baby that was just, we used to photograph them in the first 10 days. So I had spent some time, and really it was the kind of branding work and the long-term clients I'd already worked with in that kind of construction and architecture work that I was doing that kept my business going throughout lockdown because you could just be in an empty building taking photos, not near any people. And so I guess lockdown just gave me the space and the time and the opportunity, because all of a sudden all business were thrown into having to do more online. And so suddenly there was this kind of rejuvenation on like how important it is to be visible and how important it is to show up, and everything was going online, from like meetings, and so I think there was also suddenly this opportunity, and it was something that I'd been thinking about anyway, and it just gave me the time and the headspace to put all the processes and the kind of thinking and ideas behind it.
So then in that, because I know that there were times in that you were like, oh, it'll just be easier to do the things that I already know how to do. And this is where that pivot, right? When,
Yeah.
and I don't think this is one of my questions, but maybe it's sort of, um, how did you get through that barrier? And because that's a big thing, especially when you're having to learn how to market and target new people. You're having to put yourself out there, and in lockdown was really difficult because you couldn't go do stuff. So
Mhm.
then what um what would you say to somebody who's like in that pivot and they're trying to like niche down, but they're like, but I'm not getting, like, what would you tell them to keep at it because blank?
I think for me it's like I had to almost step into a new version of myself, if that makes
Mm,
sense. And I had to, like, I'm a firm believer is it's all or nothing. Like, you just throw yourself into it, and it's like if you move country, or if you move, I don't know, for me it was move country was a big one, like, right? Because you move country and you've got to make it work, especially if you've got
yeah.
family or you've got kids and things like that. Like, you put yourself in, you go all in, you move all your stuff over,
Mm,
you do it, and you do it wholeheartedly. And if you do it wholeheartedly, you've got a much more a higher success rate, if that makes sense. I think if you just, I think it's just pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, and trusting that you have everything you
mm.
need inside of you to do that. And
I,
there were things that were difficult. Was I had to start saying no to the family and baby clients, and did I get it right straight away? No, I didn't. Initially, I just took repeat business. So I didn't take any new business. But if I had a sibling, new baby was born and was a sibling, I would say yes to those shoots. But now I'm at that point where I'm just like, it's a clean break, and I'm not doing anything. So
and
does that answer your
yeah,
question?
that does. I think we have to overlap. I think sometimes when we go cold turkey on this new thing, we, because maybe we don't have that full commitment, or we just don't have enough, like we haven't talked about it enough, or we don't know how to explain what we do in a succinct way. That maybe I do think we have to have some of that overlap so that we still are like, I'm still good at this. I'm still good at this. I'm still good at this, right? I can always fall back and be a baby photographer if I need to, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think you do need that fallback for your own kind of, I don't know, I don't know, um, just to keep yourself confident and understand that you're going to keep sustaining yourself, because at the end of the day, we've got to make an income. We've got to, this is the money we live off. But I do think that learning to say no and throwing yourself into something new is not without challenge. And so you have sometimes giving yourself permission to still do a little of the other stuff, but really focus all your efforts on, or the working on the business towards where you're trying to get to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it totally does. Was there anything that you had to give up so that you could focus in, so that you had to stop saying yes to everybody? You had to give up that like pleasing everybody. But was there anything else that maybe we wouldn't think of that you had to give up to really put a little bit more time and effort into this part?
Um,
I mean, you had a lot more time learning. You gave up
yeah,
time.
yeah. So I guess time would be the big thing. I guess I was always very good at having that kind of work-life balance. And so I guess the scary thing when you're suddenly throwing yourself into something new is that you think, oh my God, I'm going to have to work so much harder, and I'm going
Yeah.
to spend so much more time. But actually, if you manage your time, you can actually be really efficient and still make sure you've got that work-life balance. So I guess it was just, I'm not sure if there was anything I had to give up, but I had to give up saying yes to everything, as
Well,
you said, and
and
just
that
start trusting that I had the ability to make it work.
well, and I also love I wrote this down as the answer kind of to this question, and then maybe the one before was you had to commit to it, that it was the new version of yourself. I think seeing those photos of you being that photographer that you wanted to be, um and then just the power of a photograph, right? That was something you could point to and be like, this is what I am doing. And then I want to know what all in means. Like when it got hard, what does some people do that you didn't do? Like,
Uh, when it got hard, what did some people do that I didn't do? Um, I
it was never an option for you to go back to South Africa. You were like, no, I'm going to make it work here in the UK. So say you just had that mindset, and maybe having done that so many years just from the way you were brought up.
yeah, I mean, I guess I've always been quite like that. That's part of my personality, really. I talk a lot about, with my clients, actually, I talk a lot about our history and how that kind of shapes who we are today. And I've been a all or nothing kind of person. We used to do a lot of like, we call it kloofing in South Africa, but basically it's just jumping off rocks into water. It's the higher the better kind of thing. And so I was probably the only girl that used to do it. All the other girls were suntanning on the rocks at the bottom.
I
But
would have been with you. I would have
yeah,
been
yeah,
jumping off the
yeah.
cliff.
I mean, come on. But I would often get up to the top, and maybe someone's been up there for a little while, and they're kind of hesitating, and they're thinking, should I jump? And I'd literally go up there and say, right, where are we jumping from? Okay, and do it, because I know if I didn't just do it, if I didn't take action, I wouldn't do it. I would start to doubt myself. I would start to overthink it.
Yeah, that's really powerful to know, right? And that's same way with a client when you're trying to get them to warm up, you just have to try. And I think you've explained to me how you're talking to a client and they're like, I don't know. And you're like, I've got to warm them up. I've got to get them to a place where they're stopping thinking and overthinking. Does this
Overthinking.
smile look normal? And you're like, oh, no, it does not. We're going to keep you talking until you get your smile normal.
Exactly. And every client's slightly different, and I have different ways that I do that, but often the best ways is just acting like a complete idiot most of the time.
That's right. That's right. Well, we can do like
Getting
Hannah
them to
said.
have fun. Yeah, yeah,
Right, exactly. Exactly. Because nobody really wants to. One of the things that, as I've looked at your portfolio many times, you just really capture people. You capture people in actions, but also feeling they look like they're just happy and enjoying life. And that's the kind of, I mean, I think we could probably have a whole episode of just like what you should not do for your brand photo shoot, right? Like you shouldn't be, I mean, there's lots of things. You'd have webinars, which will make sure everybody knows how to get on your list so that they can follow you and stuff. But all right, so how do you get your ideas? So say a client comes to you, um, and do you think most of the time they have something or they don't have an idea?
Some clients will come to me with a really clear idea, and some clients will come to me with absolutely no idea. So it really varies from client to client. But I guess for me, the first kind of step and the most important part is getting to kind of understand and know that client really well and what makes them tick and who they are, and kind of understand their history and where they've come from and where they're trying to get to, and then also who they're trying to work with.
So do you do that before or during your first meeting or
So no, so that would kind of probably come into the first part of my process. Obviously, I have a chat with people before they decide to book with me, before we figure out if we're a good fit, if they're a good fit for me, and if I think I can help them. And so I kind of, the way that I would do that, I suppose, is I would kind of look through what their current visuals are like, and kind of see what kind of feeling and ideas I get from what they're currently putting out there, and that I would do before I've had a chat to them at all. They've just maybe booked a call with me, and so I kind of have a general idea of what I think's going on. Sometimes I'll jump on the call and they'll be in the middle of a rebrand or something will be completely different. And so that's when they'll talk me through that.
Okay, cool. So then what about, and I think you have a deck for me. And so this is my question. So how do you get ideas? Where do you go to get ideas? And then after you've had that initial meeting, how do, and I use the word ideate. I think maybe, I don't think I made up that word, but anyway, so like get ideas,
No, it is
brainstorm.
actually, it's the real word. I looked this up after you used
I was like,
it.
maybe I'm just stupid and I'm making up a word.
It's the real word, but I think sometimes you in America you use slightly different words than what we use in the UK. But I did Google it after we spoke, and it is actually a word. I asked my husband, who usually knows every word there is to know, and he was like, "I don't think that's a word." And then I Googled it.
Well, so I want to know how you get ideas. And if you want to share your screen, that'd be great. Because
Sure.
do you think your research looks similar from client to client, or is it really different? Like, because that's, I think, one of your strengths as a brand photographer. You're able to find something that's going to work for this brand. Everything isn't just the exact same. I always think about photographers who are doing kids who are in their last year of school, which I think maybe it's grade 13 for y'all. For us, it's grade 12, their senior year. And they're all like at the railroad tracks, or they have this like picture, like a wall behind them that's a lot of tagging or stuff. And so it's like everybody kind of looks the same, but it's really important as a brand photographer that you capture the essence of the brand. And that is harder, right?
Yes, exactly. I think kind of the first step is to look at their competitors and kind of see where they're at. And I think that's probably what I do first, to see what they're kind of doing so that we can make sure we're differentiating ourselves and we're not looking the same as all our competitors. And we often get into that horrible comparison game. And so it's just making sure that we are actually quite different. So I find researching their competitors would probably be the first step. And the second step is, as I said, really getting to know them, because I think my ethos is we are all unique. And so if we can bring some of who we are into our brands, it's going to resonate more with people that have similar values, for example, or personality traits, or beliefs as we do. So I start very much from the client and kind of getting to know them and getting to know their history and their story and understanding what those beliefs are and what those values are. And then that kind of starts painting a picture. I'm quite a visual person, so it kind of starts painting a picture in my head. But then sometimes it's difficult to show that to a client. So what we would do is collaborate on a vision board, and I'll just share my screen with you now. So this is a vision board that I did recently with the client. So usually I ask them to make a vision board where we add 15 to 20 images, and then we collaborate on it, and I'll add some images and they'll add some images, and we'll start kind of getting a feel for the brand, if that makes sense. And then when we come to the shoot, obviously this also lends itself to like understanding more about the brand, so we can think about what we're going to include in the shoot. Obviously we're going to include them, but sometimes we're not just telling that story, we're thinking about who we're trying to attract and how we can use imagery to do that. So sometimes that location plays a part in this hugely, not only in like telling the story of our brand, but also attracting those people and making sure that it's in line with who you're trying to attract. So once we've kind of worked out where we're going to shoot and what we're going to do, we'll do the shoot, and then we'll think about kind of the styling for the brand. I'm just going to try and find where I've got to click next. So for this shoot, we wanted to be out in nature. We wanted it to be really natural and authentic. She has Indian roots, so we wanted that to come across, and then we went looking for a location that would really speak to that, and included in that was some outdoor kind of images. But then using that vision board, I suppose I kind of get an idea in my head, and I'm a visual person, so I visualize a lot. And so then I would go and I would think about how are we trying to to differentiate ourselves and make our brand stand out, and that's by maybe adding a certain look and feel to our images. So this is kind of the look and feel that we've gone for. It's got a bit of grain, it's got a little bit of an overlay, the colors are not too vivid, and it works really well with her story.
Well, and knowing lighting, right? The power of lighting, how the light is hitting those leaves, but it's also how it's hitting her. Like, I don't know where you found this place in England, but like, are you just always on the lookout for places? Is this place near you?
Yes, this is not that far from me. My whole, like, I think one of your questions later on is how do I brainstorm, and how do I get my ideas, and how do I get my inspiration? And actually it's from visiting places. It's from going to see places. I'm always on the lookout for locations. I always have kind of a little bag of tricks of locations that I think would work with creative clients, because most of the clients I work with are creatives. Um, but sometimes I'll get a client that maybe doesn't, I don't have a location that fits, and then I'll have to go and do research, and I'll go and visit locations, and I'll look for something specific to them. But I do kind of spend a lot of my time enjoying going to different places, and so that's how
That's,
I kind of,
but that's also like, that's something that if you're not doing that, then you're not able to service your clients, right?
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
And I guess, I mean, you guys have taxes too. So that's like a tax write-off when you're going to different parts that are near, right? If you go to Leeds, you might be having which is pretty far, but I know you've been. So it's like you could scout out places up there if you needed to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I hadn't thought about it as a tax write-off, but even in my spare time, when we're going out looking for somewhere to go walking, or somewhere just to,
Mm.
spend with the kids, sometimes I just come across places in that kind of space. I try not go to the same places over and over again. It just gets boring, and I suppose going to new places always helps with ideas.
That's cool. Okay,
So
go ahead,
yeah,
keep
so
going.
so anyway, so we created this kind of look and feel, and then I apply it kind of to all the images that we've taken for the brand, and then I would go back to the client after I've come up with this kind of look and feel, and see if it feels in line with where they are.
So I have a question in this. This wasn't on the sheet, but
Mm.
if you have, because she's in multiple places, she's in multiple outfits. So is this over a brand photo shoot? Is this over a period of days? I know you have packages, which I think is brilliant, and we all should do this. But you have packages that are like, well, you can have 4 brand photo shoots this year. And I hate that I just have this photo of me in a sweater, because it really doesn't work all the time. I need one with a sweater. I also need one. What happens when my hair changes? I need some, which I think is so brilliant that you do this. Like, they're signing a year package, or that's one option that people can do. And because it's not like you're doing all these at one time, right?
Well, actually, you're right. I don't always do them all at one time, and I do have packages where we work over the period of the year. I find that works really well with showing seasonal changes, and
Hmm.
showing keeping current, because as businesses and brands and business owners, we're constantly evolving and changing, and I think showing things that are current are incredibly important. We might also go grey, or it's important to look like you are
Current.
today.
Yes, yes.
But this shoot is actually all done on one day.
Wow.
So we found a location. If you can see that image in the middle, where
Hmm.
she's on a kind of a wooden deck. So this was what drew me to that location in the first instance, and it had a coffee shop, it had like a yoga room that we could use, it had a restaurant upstairs, and it was all very earthy and natural, and that lended itself really well to her brand. But it also had an area where you could go walking outside, and so I went before the shoot. I've been to this place before, but I went before the shoot and had a look around and checked out the forest, and looked at where I could find, where the best light was, what time of day that would be the best light, things like that. So actually, all of these images were taken on the same day.
So like, is this a 8 hour thing, a 6 hour thing? Because
So this was probably a 4 hour thing.
oh,
So we would plan all the outfits ahead of schedule. We'd choose the locations, and then we would map out the shoot so that we were on schedule. I don't think
yeah,
it ever runs on schedule, but generally I would cut it up into three parts, and we'd say, right, on the first part we'll be at this area on location, and we'll be shooting these kinds of images, and these will maybe cover these topics in your social media, because we work a lot towards creating images that cover your content in the brand shoots that we do. And then we would say, right, in this section we're going to go to the yoga room, for example, and we're going to use these two outfits, and we kind of map out the shoot, if that makes sense, and what
yeah.
outfits we're going to wear and what kinds of images we're hoping to achieve.
Well, like the one where she's doing something with her hands. I don't know if she's making something or not. And then there's another image that's like candles and a book and a leaf. Did you have to bring stuff like that with you for?
Yes, exactly. So we bring the candles and leaf images actually is just another image that I happen to have, that I've put in there as kind of a placeholder, because we're doing the second part of her shoot actually tomorrow,
Oh,
where we'll be doing all those kind of filler images, but it's just to give that kind of feel for this purpose. And we would plan all of that, like what props we're going to bring, what kinds of images we're going to go for, and then often my clients will be shopping, they'll go, oh, I found this, looks really cool, and they'll send me a photo. Or I also keep a bunch of stuff that I've got that I use, not for every brand, but I just happen to have bits and pieces that I pick up because leaves that I think are pretty, or candles I've collected, or I've got old books that I really love that were my grandmother's, and things like that, that we can incorporate if it fits the brand and if it's right. And sometimes we have to go out and source things.
so then sometimes would like an image like that one with the books, is that something that you might take on your own without her? And it's just some of those filler images because we all need some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are very good at telling like the story of a brand or giving the feel. She's actually a jeweler, and she makes crystal jewelry that and does some crystal healing. So that's kind of what the next two shoots are going to be. Some are going to be some filler
Mm.
images that tell the story and give that kind of feel for the brand. And then we're going to also have her product shots where it's the actual jewelry and how we showcase those and what images we show, and how we can tell the story, like continue her story, so continue that thread through all the images, from her personal brand images to her kind of storytelling filler images, and then to through into her product images as well.
Yeah. Okay. So then, I know you have
Yeah,
others
so
because I've
then,
seen
but
the,
yeah, so I thought I'd just show, how different brands can be, and that it's not just one style. I think some photographers only shoot in one style, and I think it's great to look for a photographer that would suit your style or what you're looking for. But as a photographer, I actually bend and mold my style so that it fits the brand. I've obviously still got my own style, but I feel like it depends on the brand and what they're trying to achieve as to how I'm going to shoot for them. So I thought I'd just share a couple of the other brands
yeah.
I've worked with.
Well, and that's maybe that your design background where you're really serving the client instead of it being you. You're actually really, and as we are trying to find photographers, and if we're in the UK, clearly we're using you. But if we're not, then having somebody who's gonna try to tell our story in our way, because these are definitely very different.
Yeah. So it's about capturing that kind of look and feel in a way that's really in line with the brand, and how they want to be shown, if that makes sense.
So Hannah has a question real quick that I think is a
Sure.
really good one. She went over to the UK she was in your neck of the woods this summer, and she said, "What's your backup plan on a shoot like that where the weather could be really mess things up if it's not a certain way?"
So I will not shoot if the weather is terrible. And the way that I get around this is that I actually work with a really small amount of clients every month so that I can build in that flexibility to work around the weather. Now, we will, if it is a brand that requires a sunshiny day, then I'm constantly watching the weather. And I think I only confirm the shoot the night before, depending on the weather. Like leading up to the shoot, I'm always watching the weather. And then I might message the client a few days before and say, look, the weather's looking a little bit sketchy, but it may change. So just to make you aware. And then as we get closer, we might switch things around. For example, for her, for example, we would have switched around and maybe done the products that day.
Right.
So it's just about building in that flexibility, and obviously when you're booking venues, making sure that they're happy for you to build in that flexibility.
Yeah.
Should the weather be terrible. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that was great.
Perfect. So yeah, this was an interior designer and she had a much fresher kind of look. So we went for a lot of kind of cleaner images, light and bright and airy. Then I've worked with a brand, I guess, web developer and brand designer, and his is, way more different. Lots of color, lots of fun. So I think it just shows how you can choose your style to suit your brand, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And lastly, this is another jewelry brand that I've worked with where we've incorporated kind of her story into the whole brand. So she's a jeweler and she imports jewelry from all over the world, but her story is very much one of travel meets fine art jewelry. And so we wanted to pull in that element of travel and thread it through all her images. So we've given everything quite a boho kind of warm travel destination vibe. We've built in some kind of shadows and sunshine to show
those are beautiful.
Her product images as well. So it just, trying to find that thread and that story and thread it through all your images. Some of that one where she's on the beach. I know, Diane, you've seen the behind the scenes image of that one. It was actually quite a chilly day with loads of people around, but we managed to capture this and we've included a little bit of some travel magazines to just keep that kind of thread running through the brand.
Yeah, I love that. That is, you can go back through her Instagram and see that and see the in process, which I really love that Pippa includes that because it looks like it's just this beautiful warm day. The lady had like a big sweater on and then Pippa would pull it off and she would take some photos and there were tons. And the other process photos show all these other people that Pippa was going around, but you did amazing. And the ones with the jewelry in the top middle and the middle left, and then the one right next to her on the right, that background, what they're laying on, did you pick that out as like a stone or a tile or something? Or is that something that she had in her
So
place?
that was a tile. So often I will make recommendations. So I'll say, think about how you want what you want your your jewelry pieces to be on, for example. And I'll say, look at things like different types of fabric, different tiles, pieces of stone, pieces of wood. And I think it's just thinking about what's going to be in keeping with the kind of brand and the aesthetic you're going for. So she actually had this tile, she sourced this tile and we loved the grain of it. We actually shot on 3 or 4 different tiles before we chose the one that we were going to use. But I think we were kind of trying to go for the right colors to fit in with her brand colors and then get some kind of texture. And also thinking about like, these are probably the kind of tiles you'd have in a warm destination.
Yes.
So it's pulling that into the images as well.
I remember going to her site and being like, I love this this jewelry, but I don't think she had like the shipping to the US. And I'm like, man, these things are awesome. I mean, the jewelry's awesome, but it's that the photography made me want to go and investigate this. I don't know if I ever told you that, but I was like, I was this close to buying like 3 pairs of earrings, and maybe I will. But so what do you do if you have a client who has their own ideas and they're maybe not the best ideas? Like I know my friend Hannah, I have a really bright red shirt, which I really like this red shirt. Not this one, but this is also about it's really hard to photograph something like this. And and it's cold where I am right now in this room. So people never see what color my shirt is. So, but that isn't always the best for if you're on stage or if you're in getting photographed, because it can wash me out, who's super, super pale. How do you, maybe if they have an aspirational image, but they're not there yet, how do you direct them? Because a lot of this, what you're talking about, sounds like brand strategy. You're running brand strategy with them before they do the photo shoot.
Yeah. I think part of being an expert in your industry and in your field is being able to have those difficult conversations, right? And being able to say, look, I don't agree with you. And clients can take that or leave that. Obviously, we're going to say it in the best possible way, um, but I think it's important because they've hired you because you are an expert at what you do, and so I can only deliver my best work if I'm true to my beliefs and kind of what I see for their brand. And I've never have had a client say, no, I still want to do it my way. So I think I think a lot of my process now kind of irons that out because they get really on board because I use them and their unique personality and their own beliefs and their own values to kind of style their brand or get, we ideate together. It's very collaborative. So I do think I have had one jewelry client actually who had a completely different idea. And I think a lot of it comes from that we see maybe another brand in our industry and we think, oh, they've got it right, so let's copy them. And I see
Mm-hmm.
this a lot with kind of solopreneurs who maybe are working on their own and they don't have that confidence to just trust themselves.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's, oh, I just want to copy, I don't know, Tiffany jewelry, for example, but that is not in line with their story and it's not in keeping and it's not going to differentiate themselves because everybody wants to look like Tiffany because Tiffany does incredible jewelry, right? So it's just about having that conversation, having the confidence to have that conversation
Yeah.
and let them know your thoughts and why you're making the decisions you think are right for their brand, and most of the time, if not all the time, they'll get on board with that.
Well, and I think you're having enough of their background and you've looked at their competition, you see where they are, and then um you're not just saying I think, you're saying this is
That's
why that's not a
research.
good, yeah, you're telling a
Exactly. This
reason. You're
is the
not just an
research. No, I'm
opinion.
not like, oh no, that looks terrible. I don't like it. It's not it's not like that at all. It's stemmed in the research that we've done and the understanding behind the branding. And so there's a reason for it. I'm not just going, hey, this is my opinion, and also my experience as a photographer, a huge amount, if not everything. In fact, everything with photography is about light. You can have the best background, but if the light is terrible, you're never going to get a great image. So, it's just showing that you know what you're talking about and giving those reasons and showing that you understand.
And I think sometimes just holding space for them to be able to process what you're directing them. And you may say, well, let's stop here for today and then let's come back. Just revisit the mood board or revisit the brainstorm that we've done. And then let's see where you are next week when we meet again. Because I know that you're meeting with them, you're doing a lot of prep because you're doing the strategy with them.
And sometimes I'll just show them, right? I'll show them a mood board of like what they're trying to achieve, and then a mood board of what I think might work better, and then maybe why it differentiates them in the market, for example. So sometimes it's just something I need to visually show them for them to get on board with.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you're able to do the packaging, you're able to do the lifestyle shots as well. I think that there was a story about somebody who they were pivoting and they were maybe in a home office and it was just really not. Can you tell that story? It just really
Yeah,
didn't.
sure. So yeah, I worked with the client and who they were trying to attract is actually a really high-end client. They want someone that's really, they were a web designing company. They want someone that's like up to date with technology. They maybe are not, their clients themselves are not hugely up to date. They may be in their 50s. They don't know a lot about social media or new technology, but they're looking for someone who does know a lot about that. So making sure that then though that's represented in your imagery is hugely important. So they had quite a cluttered home office with lots of stuff everywhere. It didn't give that kind of modern technology, we know our stuff feel. So having that conversation and saying, look, this is not the right location for the shoot, and let's look at some other options that are more in line with who you're trying to attract, and these are the reasons why.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, we did that, and we chose a lovely location, and the shoot went swimmingly, and we still kept enough of them in the location by bringing the props that were, special to them or told a bit of their story into the location and making it theirs, but having it tell the right story.
So I'm kind of skipping around. Did they give you suggestions or about locations and then you scope them out, or do you usually come with suggestions first?
I usually come with suggestions based on what I've understood by the brand. So recently I had a shoot for a publisher, and a lot of the images in his mood board had books and a library,
Mm.
and so trying to find the library or books that a library you can shoot in, because a lot of them in the UK, they don't want, they want quiet. It's where people go to kind of read their books and be quiet. So having a photo shoot where we're trying to laugh and have a great energy is not going to work. So then I had to go away and do some research on where could we find a library, and sometimes that's just me posting on social media, hey, does anyone know a venue that has a library? So that's what I did for this one, and we found some stately homes that usually hire out for weddings on the weekends and kind of latter end of the week, and we booked a shoot there on the Monday when they don't have any weddings and the room's not being used. And actually it was a great result because we had the library, but then we also had the rest of the house, which was very much in keeping with who he was for the brand. So, but I went and visited 3 different locations to choose which one had the library that fit the brand and was the right look and feel.
I love that. Okay, so then is there a challenge that you think that you see or hear a lot from entrepreneurs, creative entrepreneurs? I think you work with a lot of creative entrepreneurs as well, but that's who we are here. So that would help them get a jump start on creating a style and not maybe getting frustrated in those early stages. So like, why is it important that we have brand photography of our faces and not just our work online? Answer that one first. Sorry.
Sure, no problem. So the reason why it's important to have your face is because people buy from people. They don't buy from logos. They buy from people, and they buy from people that they know and that they like and that they trust. So using photos of yourself to tell your story and share what you believe in and what you value is going to help people resonate. And I think it's just as important to what's the word I'm looking for, to repel the people that you don't want to work with, as it is to attract the people that you do want to work with. So I think by showing who you are, and you know what it's like, you see a picture of someone, we're all nosy people, we want to see it, but you'll decide instantly whether you like them or not. So it's having that opportunity of connecting with someone is much easier with a photo of yourself than it is with any other photo. I mean, you could have a photo of your piece of jewelry, for example, but that's not they might think, oh, nice piece of jewelry, but having a photo of you, people are, oh, I wonder what she's all about. I wonder what she's, and or if you can tell a little bit more through that story, oh, I see she's reading that book that I've scene or whatever it might be, finding something that makes them connect. Or it could be the location. I've just signed a new client today, and we're going to shoot in this very retro kind of cake shop. And so that's going to be, it's super colorful, it's going to be super funky, and I think that will just make people want to click through and find out more. So it's finding ways to make people pay attention, I guess. But yeah, showing your face is hugely important because it's building that know, like, and trust, and getting people to know you and understand who you are.
Absolutely. And it's hard for everybody. So that's where that rapport comes in. But if somebody's sat down with you, like Pippa does, and ask you about your company and ask you about where your vision is and who you want to align with and who who your customers buy from, that helps her to get an idea of painting that better picture. And I think that so many
people, it also helps you get that you feel more comfortable with that photographer, and that's probably the reason why I started building more into like spending time with clients before we actually get to the shoot, because I could turn up on the day and take some photos, but I don't know what makes them tick. I don't know what makes them laugh. I don't know, they're not relaxed. They've never met me before. So that's a huge part of becoming friends almost before we even take a photo. And I think that's what I'm trying to get people to do through the photography, is to just make friends with people, to get people to understand who they are and share their personality and things. And that's just to kind of build that personal brand and make friends with people and get people to know you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So then, is there a challenge that you hear from entrepreneurs when you're first meeting with them that they're like, maybe, and I realize I shouldn't have asked the question this way, so I'm going to change it a bit. So is there something that they're not confident, or they don't like the way their body, can you just take me from the hips up? Or, do they have something that you hear regularly?
I suppose the biggest thing is like, who would want to see photos of me is probably the one I hear the most. Like, let's face it, nobody thinks, very few people love having their photo taken. Think, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to book a photographer and I'm going to go and have some photos of myself, because we're all our worst enemies. We all judge ourselves. We're all like, I don't like my nose or my ears, like for me, I hate having my hair tucked behind my ear on my photo shoots. I always tell the photographer, please, if I tuck my hair behind my ear, make me move it, sort of thing. But some people, it's their teeth, or so they don't want to smile. But I think nobody else sees us the way that we see ourselves. No one judges us the way we judge ourselves. So it's just, practice makes perfect, really. As I said, like, I used to hate having my photo taken. I remember that first shoot, I was hugely nervous, didn't want to be on the other side of the camera. Now I'm like, bring it on, 4 times a year, let's go. Let's a day out the office. I get to dress up, I get to hang out with a friend and do silly things and actually have a lot of fun and grow my business in the process. So I guess that's the biggest challenge, that people think, who would want to see me? And also, like, if I'm constantly sharing photos of myself online, everybody's going to think, I think, too much of myself. But actually, people don't think about us the way that we think about ourselves. They don't judge us as harshly as we judge ourselves.
That's right. That absolutely. Okay. So last question is, what is one thing that you've learned this last year that's been the most impactful, either in your life or business or both?
So it took me a little while, and I had to put some thought into this because I feel like I've just learned so much over the last year. But I think the thing that's had the biggest impact is that kind of be, do, have. Thinking about like being the person you're striving to become today. So if you want to be a 7-figure, 6-figure, whatever it might be, business owner, start acting like one today. Start being that person today and living that life today. So that's kind of the be. And then the do is do what you need to do to make that happen. And just think about that one next step that you could take, that one thing that you could do that's going to get you closer to achieving that goal. And don't worry about the hordes of stuff that we think we need to do. Just take one action every day. that's going to get you closer. And then finally, the have is like dream big and manifest those things into your life, create vision boards, get excited about your life and business, and then start living that life today.
That's a good way to end. Well, so I always like to make sure that everybody knows, and I'm going to read it so that people know if they're listening. You can always go to this episode, Pippa, Pippa, Tanko, Tanko. It's an easy way to search on my website for this. But if you're on YouTube or on SoundCloud or wherever you get your podcast, it's underneath. So all these links, they'll be at the top of this. But Pippa's website is tankobranding.com. And then Instagram, Pippa Tanko Branding, all one word. And then you can also check her out on LinkedIn. She's on LinkedIn a lot. She's told me that was the first place she goes every day when she starts her social media part. So she starts on LinkedIn because she is for brands. So I hope this has been helpful to y'all. It's helpful to me to see how somebody else from another vertical as photography, she's still within our industry as a creative entrepreneur, but one, how she's tackled her business and how she's pivoted through it and just stuck with it. So I'm going to keep that, commit to it, commit to the new version of myself. And what does all in mean to me, Diane? What does all in mean to Jen Close? What does all in mean to John Ingalls and Dee Ingalls? All in, it, you have to determine what that means. And I love this at the very end. I wrote this too, like the be, the do, and the have. And I think you have to start with that big dream. And then again, just like she said earlier, just commit to it. And then even when it gets hard, so there has to be people in your life that are going to walk with you and encourage you and support you. But then you're also going to have those hard conversations with yourself. You can't please everybody. So the thing you had to give up was pleasing everybody. You're saying yes. But that's made a huge difference because you have pushed through and you are making this what you are, and you're doing great. I mean, you're booking people all the time. It's not always easy. It's not like you just one day you were yesterday you did babies and today you're doing, it takes time and you have to be seen as that. So I think that anyway, I thought this was great, Pippa, and happy early birthday. It's just a few hours for you now. So I just appreciate you doing a day before your birthday.
Oh, no, thank you. It's been so much fun to be here and to chat to everyone. Thank you for all the lovely comments. I've had a look at a couple of them.
Well, so next week I believe Von Glitschke is on. And if you don't know who he is an illustrator and he's done tons of amazing logos, but he also does, he's just a great teacher. He's on LinkedIn Learning and he's funny and he has a great way of illustrating and getting new ideas. So I hope you guys will, I'm going to talk to him about burnout because I think Pippa, me and you have definitely talked about burnout. We didn't talk about it today, but I know that we both felt we've definitely been in the burnout stage. And I think as any creative entrepreneur, when you're wearing all the hats in your business, again, you should probably come back on and tell us how you do your family balance and time. And you could probably teach us something on that one for sure. But Pippa, thank you so much for being here today. And just in case somebody missed it, it is Pippa Tanko Branding.com. And that's on Instagram, her website, and then Pippa Tanko Brand Photographer on LinkedIn. So Pippa, thank you so much. And thank you guys for coming. And hopefully I'll see y'all all next week.